Here's the question, Peter.
Shoot.
Do with it what you will. If you could leave our listener with a single thought today, what might that be?
How about I give you two, one bad, one good?
Okay.
Okay, let me give you the bad one first so we can end on a positive note.
Okay.
Between the Ukraine war and political mal-decision-making in China, we are seeing a massive shortage, global in scope, of every type of fertilizer production. Agriculture is the most vulnerable economic sector because if you don't have everything you need at every stage of the process, you lose an entire season and you have to wait for the next one. So this calendar year, we're going to be seeing fertilizer shortages throughout most of Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Because these areas import on average 3/4 of what they need. That is going to be haunting us for years because it's unlikely to get better anytime soon because we're now seeing problems in finance and manufacturing and transport and the rest, all of which agriculture is dependent upon. Now, if you're a farmer outside of those zones, this is a golden opportunity. But that's my personal nightmare, is the implication of what happens when the agricultural input supply chain is strained and we're seeing it break. So there's my negative. The positive. We're looking at the simultaneous breakdown of the German and the Chinese manufacturing systems, and they're not coming back. In the United States, assuming for the moment that we want to have stuff, North America is going to have to double the size of its industrial plant in less than 5 years. That's wildly inflationary, and it's on top of the boomers gutting the labor force from their leaving, the millennials jumping up consumption because of their age bracket, Chinese labor going away, and Russian materials going away. So we're looking at 9 to 15% inflation in the United States for the next 5 years. This is a really good story because, yes, it's going to be high inflation, but doubling the size of the industrial plant, building that out using local workforces and shorter supply chains that use less energy and have less transport, and they're closer to the end consumer. They're using the most advanced technology that is available today, integrating Mexico. This is going to be the greatest growth story in the history of Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And when it's done in a few years, we will be left with the world's most productive and stable manufacturing base, and it will largely be immune to international shocks. It's not a straight road, but wow, is it a good one.
Yeah, that's one of my big theses, right? It's basically reshoring is what I hear you saying.
Reshoring, nearshoring, friendshoring, whatever you want to call it. There is not an industrial sector that has moved away from China in the last 4 years where the replacement system is less efficient than what it left. The Chinese have aged out. Their labor costs have gone up by a factor of 15 since the year 2000. They are not economically competitive in anything. And the only reason we still think of China as a manufacturing superpower is because of the admittedly large sunk cost of the investment to this point. But it's all going to be lost anyway, and it's almost all going to be lost in the next 3 years.
Okay, I know I said it was my last question, but you always make me think of more things, so I'm going to keep you for one more. So what do you think of this idea of the Thucydides trap, then? It doesn't sound like you think it has much teeth to it, where two big superpowers, they're going to fight sooner or later. But China doesn't sound like the superpower everybody says.
Have you read the book? Because I don't want to put words in Graham Ellison's mouth. So he's perfectly willing, and he says so early in the book, that this happened in 60% of the power transfers in human history. That leaves 40% where it didn't happen. So there's a correlation, not a causation. And second, the challenging power, when it loses badly. So the Germans were the challenging power in the world wars. And that obviously didn't work out at all. So the Chinese have become wealthy because of globalization and because of the American security overwatch. If they were to challenge those things, they would have to have a replacement plan. They don't have the demographics to be consumption-led. They don't have the political system to be attractive to partners. They don't have a single ally, not even North Korea. And they don't have a navy that can reach more than 1,000 miles from home. So they would have to go through a top-to-bottom economic overhaul in order to survive the end of the American era. And that assumes that the Americans go quietly into that good night, which I don't see why that would happen because we have millennials.